Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and today I am doing a book haul. These are all of the books that I've bought from early spring up until now. There are 40 of them. If you are new to my channel, I typically read a wide variety of genres, but my favorite is fantasy horror, and usually romance is my third favorite, but this year I've been struggling with romance books, finding ones that I like, but there are quite a few romance books on this haul. A big chunk of these books are all thrifted and they are vintage horror, so I cannot wait to get to those. But yeah, let's just get right into it. I'm not going to go deep into what these books are about. Some of them I don't even know what they're about. I bought based on the cover. Those are mostly the vintage horror books. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. I'm just going to read maybe a couple sentences from the synopsis and give you kind of a little brief description of the book. Some of these I have already read, so if I've read them, I'll let you know. And we are actually going to start with some that I've read already and have already decided to unhaul because I've DNF'd them or hated them. So let's start with those. First up is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. I just tried to read this in an upcoming reading vlog that you will see soon, so I won't go too much into why I DNF'd this, but yes, I DNF'd this and I have no desire to complete it or ever try to read it again, so I will be unhauling this. Next up is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I talked about this in my summer wrap-up, so you can hear my thoughts on that. I'll link that video above, but I DNF'd this. I was bored, wasn't really interested, and really didn't like the way Ali Hazelwood kept referencing the male lead character's size and how tall he was, and it was just becoming very repetitive, so I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I DNF'd this. This is also getting unhauled. Next is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. This is a teen slasher that I thought I was going to absolutely love, and I did not. It started out so promising. It is very atmospheric. It says, at Camp Mirror terror is the name of the game, but can you survive the night? This book is about a young girl, I think she's about 16 or 17 years old, who works at this camp that reenacts this like really cult classic, very similar to like the Jason movies. And they reenact these movies at this camp. People come to pay to try to be like the final girl or final guy in this reenactment. The players in it can touch you and push you and hide you and lock you up and all kinds of things, which sounded so good. And it started out, like I said, fantastic. But the direction that it went into was horrible. I hated the ending. I hated the way that it just veered off into like this weird situation. So I don't even remember what I gave it. I think 2.5. I will never read this again, so I am also unhauling this one. And the last book that I bought that I know I'm going to unhaul is The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrandt. I also talked about this in my summer wrap-up as well. I tried to read it and ended up just really not liking kind of the direction it was going into. It had like this depressing tone to it. It's about this food blogger whose husband dies. She becomes a widow and she's kind of lonely, so she decides to do this 5-star weekend where she finds friends from each era of her life, like when she's a child and then I think teenager, college, and adulthood, and she takes them to her beach house in, I can't remember if it's like Nantucket, some beach house somewhere, where they all get together and are supposed to have like a 5-star weekend. One of the characters does have breast cancer. That's another thing that I just wasn't interested in reading about. I needed something a little bit more cheery, and unfortunately I have no desire to pick this up in the future, so I'm unhauling it. Next up is fantasy, and the first book in that category is going to be Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I also talked about this in my summer wrap-up. I gave this, I think, 3.5 stars. This is a fantasy book about a young woman who is going into this school for dragon riding. I think I called it dragon training last time. It's dragon riding, and it's got romance in it and dragons. Not enough dragons. A little bit of world building. Not enough world building. The writing is okay, but of course everyone knows what this is about. It's been all over the place. I overall enjoyed it, but I definitely want more going into the second book, so 3.5 stars. Next fantasy book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is a very well-loved fantasy book that I actually know nothing about outside the fact that it's supposed to be very funny. I didn't realize how short and small it would be. It's only 216 pages, and it just says, seconds before Earth is demolished to make way for a galactic freeway, Arthur Dent is plucked off the planet by his friend Ford Perfect, a researcher for the revised edition of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, who for the last 15 years has been posing as an out-of-work actor. I have no idea where it goes, but I'm very excited to read this. Another well-loved fantasy book that I wanted to try is Guards by Terry Pratchett. This is part of a huge series in a Discworld is what I think it's part of, and I'm told that you can start in very different places in this series, but Guards I hear is always the place most people recommend. So again, I think this is also humorous. I know nothing else about it. This is long believed extinct, a superb specimen of Draco Nobilis, noble dragon, has appeared in Discworld's greatest city. Not only does this unwelcome visitor have a nasty habit of charbroiling everything in its path, in rather short order, it is crowned king. This sounds fun. I can't wait to start this one too. The last book I have on here is The Wall of the Many by James Islington. This is the first book in a new series, and I think this is Roman inspired, and that's all I know. This says, at the elite Katanen Academy, a young fugitive uncovers layered mysteries and world-changing secrets in this new fantasy series by internationally best-selling author of the Lacanius trilogy, James Islington, and I did not read his other series either. Fast-paced, intricate, expansive, and so good. The mysteries and world building in The Will of the Many are sure to delight and make people crave more. So I am excited to jump into some more fantasy this winter, and I will probably add this to my winter TBR. And next we're going into the mystery thriller section of this haul. First up is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I also talked about this in my summer wrap-up. This was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely adored it. You can hear all of my thoughts in that wrap-up, so I won't go too much into it, but this is a very heartwarming story. I'll just read the inside cover. Years ago, a reclusive, mega best-selling author quit writing under mysterious circumstances. Suddenly, he resurfaces with a brand new book and a one-of-a-kind competition offering a prize that will change the winner's life. And this story is fantastic. It has a book within a book. This author's books that he writes for children is mentioned in this, and there's little snippets of it inside of this book that just make it so much more magical. And there's a little romance, and it's just perfect. 5 stars. Definitely check this out. Next up is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. She is the author of The Night Swim. I really love that thriller. And in this book, it revolves around the main character from that book. I can't remember her name. Rachel Crawl, the true crime podcaster, star of Megan Golden's acclaimed The Night Swim, returns to search for a popular influencer who disappears after visiting a suspected serial killer. Sounds good. I can't wait to read this. I've heard mixed reviews, but it's fine. We're still going to give this a go. The next 3 books are all in my summer wrap-up, so I'm just going to briefly mention them. If you want to hear my thoughts, I'll mention them and give my reviews, but if you want to hear my deep thoughts about them, check out that video. First up is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. I love Riley Sager. I love all of his books. This book was full of twists. There are a bajillion twists in this book. It centers around this woman who is like a nurse's aide. She goes to live in this woman's home. She's much older now, lives on this house on the cliff, and is known for murdering her entire family. So the nurse's aide that goes to help her is trying to unravel the secrets, and there are many. And like I said, there are many twists. This wasn't one of my favorite Riley Sager books. I think I need to give this a reread because, like I said, there were just so many twists in it that I was just losing track of them. But overall, I did really enjoy it. Next up is The Drowning by TJ Newman. This book was fantastic. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. It is very adrenaline pumping, anxiety inducing, and full of tense moments. And this book is about a plane that takes off from Hawaii, and I believe about 6 minutes after taking off, it crashes into the ocean. And a whole bunch of stuff happens, and it's about the rescue process, and you really get to know all of the characters in this book. I think the author did a great job at really making you feel about the characters in such a short amount of time. And like I said, it is full of tense moments, and I enjoyed it so much. Next up is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. I think I gave this one 4 or 4.5 stars. He is the author of Razorblade Tears, which was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved it. This is a thriller that takes place in Virginia. Titus is the first black sheriff in this town, so it is full of racial tension. There is a murder at a school. There are a lot of trigger warnings. Please look those up if you have triggers, but this was a very well written, fantastic book. The character of Titus was so multi-layered and well developed, and it was just an excellent read, so I highly recommend it. Next is The Strangers Upstairs by Lisa Matlin. This was also a Book of the Month pick. I don't know anything about this. It just says, a gruesome history, a hostile neighborhood, a new owner with a shocking secret. Welcome to Blackwood House. This is a thriller, and I love the cover. It's so pretty. I don't know, that's all I know about it. That's all I need to know. So the last thriller on this list is The September House by Carissa Orlando. I actually just finished this book last night. It's part of a reading blog that I'll be posting soon, and I love this book. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell you what my rating is, but I'll just read the inside. A woman is determined to stay in her dream home even after it becomes a haunted nightmare in this compulsively readable, twisty, and layered debut novel. This is fantastic as a debut novel. I will say, if you have tried to start reading this and you feel like you're stuck and it's a little boring, trust me, keep going, because that's how I felt initially, and the ending is worth it, 100%. So perfect read for this time of year. Now we are in the literary fiction section, and the first book is Tom Lake, a novel by Ann Patchett. I have never read any of her books, but I've been hearing really wonderful things about this. I'm a sucker for family drama and emotional reads, so every now and then I do like to read a literary fiction book. In the spring of 2020, Laura's 3 daughters... Oh, it takes place during COVID. I hope this is done well. God. Laura's 3 daughters return to the family's orchard in northern Michigan. While picking cherries, they beg their mother to tell them the story of Peter Duke, a famous actor with whom she shared both a stage and a romance years before at a theater called Tom Lake. As Laura recalls the past, her daughters examine their own lives and their relationship with their mother and are forced to reframe their understanding of the world they thought they knew. It must be a Reese's Book Club pick as well, because it's got a sticker, and of course Target had to add another one, so... And the last literary fiction book is Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. I'm sorry. And this looks like it was an Oprah's book club pick for 2023. I've heard really great reviews about this. I don't know anything about it. It says, William Waters grew up in a house silenced by tragedy where his parents could hardly bear to look at him, much less love him. So when he meets the spirited and ambitious Julia Padovano in his freshman year of college, it's as if the world has lit up around him. With Julia comes her family, as she and her 3 sisters are inseparable. Sylvie, the family's dreamer, is happiest with her nose in a book. Cecilia is a free-spirited artist, and Emmeline patiently takes care of them all. With the Padovanos, William experiences a newfound contentment. Every moment in their house is filled with love and chaos. And then I'm sure he has some darkness, and I don't know what happens after that, but I can't wait to give this a try. I just turned the fan on. It's raining outside and really cool out, but for whatever reason it's hot in here, so hopefully you cannot hear the fan. I'm sorry if you can, but I'm starting to sweat. Next category is romance. First up is In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. I read her book Love Light Farms, and that was set on like a Christmas tree farm, and I loved it so much. This is the kind of romance that I absolutely adore. Well, that was. I'm hoping this is too. I loved her writing. It was so good. I don't know what this is about. I'm going to be saying that a lot now because I don't know what any of these are about. A grumpy farmer and a no-nonsense social media influencer have another chance at love in this charming romantic comedy. Next up is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Sticker. What is her name? Ashley Poston. I read this last year. I read it, I think, on Kindle, but I needed to have a physical copy. This was another 5. I'm pretty sure I gave this 5 stars. It was fantastic. This had a little teeny bit of like paranormal activity happening in it, and I loved every second of it. Florence Day is the ghostwriter for one of the most prolific romance authors in the industry, and she has a problem. After a terrible breakup, she no longer believes in love. It's as good as dead. When her new editor, a too handsome mountain of a man, won't give her an extension on her book deadline, Florence prepares to kiss her career goodbye. But when she gets a phone call she never wanted to receive, and she must return home for the first time in a decade to help her family bury her beloved father. So there's multiple layers in this book. The characters are so cute, and I loved it so much that I needed a physical copy, and I actually recommend this for fall reading. I think it's perfect to read this season. And I also bought her new book that just released this year, The 7-Year Slip. I've been hearing great things about this one, so I'm excited to read this. Sometimes the worst day of your life happens and you have to figure out how to live after it. For Clementine West, that means burying her head in her work as a book publicist, being practical, and forgetting the silly things her beloved Aunt Anna Lee taught her, like living wide and chasing the moon. Clementine would rather stay grounded and keep her heart safe. For the last 6 months, she's done just that. And I'm pretty sure this also has kind of a tiny bit of like magical realism or some kind of paranormal stuff happening in it as well. So I'm really excited to hopefully read a romance that I love this year. The next two I talked about on my fall TBR, and this is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. It's the season to fall in love. And this one, when Jeannie's aunt gives her the beloved Pumpkin Spice Cafe in the small town of Dream Harbor, Jeannie jumps at the chance for a fresh start away from her very dull desk job. Logan is a local farmer who avoids Dream Harbor's gossip at all costs, but Jeannie's arrival disrupts Logan's routine, and he wants nothing to do with the irritatingly upbeat new girl, except that he finds himself inexplicably drawn to her. So, perfect for fall reading. And the last book in the romance category is You Again by Kate Goldbeck. Also, this is on my fall TBR as well. And this says, when Ari and Josh first meet, the wrong kind of sparks fly. They hate each other instantly. A free-spirited, struggling comedian, Ari likes to keep things casual and never sleeps over after hooking up. Josh, a born and bred New Yorker, has ambitious plans to take the culinary world by storm and find the one. They have absolutely nothing in common except that they happen to be sleeping with the same woman. And that is the last romance book on this haul. Next up is the horror section. So excited to talk about these. There are a lot. We are going to roll through them, because most of them, like I said, are thrift store buys, and I only bought them based on the covers. They are like 90s vintage horror. Yes, 90s is vintage now. So, but first there's a couple that I'll talk about that are horror that I did not get at the vintage store, or at the thrift store. This one I talked about in my fall TBR, The Haunting of Aveline Jones, and this is by Phil Hicks. This is middle grade horror. Aveline loves reading ghost stories, so a dreary half-term becomes much more exciting than when she discovers a spooky old book. Not only are the stories spine-tingling, but it belonged to a girl called Primrose Penberthy who vanished mysteriously, never to be seen again. Intrigued, Aveline decides to investigate Primrose's disappearance with some help from her new friend Harold. So cute. Can't wait to read this. Next up is Stephen King, Mr. Mercedes. This is also in my upcoming reading vlog, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, but Mr. Mercedes is this man who does a mass killing, and Bill Hodges is the detective that has to figure out who he is. And this was a fun ride. I did enjoy it, in case you're wondering, but this is actually probably more thriller than horror. You will see all of my thoughts in my upcoming reading vlog. Last year this book was all over BookTube, and that is Confessions by Kana Minato. I am really looking forward to this. This will probably be on my October TBR. I only know that this has a setting in a classroom or with a teacher. It says, after calling off her engagement in the wake of a tragic revelation, Yuko Miyaguchi has nothing to live for except her only child, 4-year-old Manami. Now, following an accident on the grounds of the middle school where she teaches, Yuko has given up and tendered her resignation. But first, she has one last lecture to deliver. She tells a story that upends everything her students ever thought they knew about two of their peers and sets in motion a maniacal plot for revenge. So I hear this has crazy twists in it, and I cannot wait to read it. Next up is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Rest in peace. I have never read any of his books. I think I tried to read The Road many years ago when I was much younger and just struggled through it, but this one sounds pretty intense, and I understand it gets pretty gory, and it gets more like it is a historical horror based on historical events that took place on the Texas-Mexico border in the 1850s. Blood Meridian is an epic novel that traces the fortunes of the kid, a 14-year-old Tennessean who stumbles into a nightmarish world in which the market for Indian scalps is thriving. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've heard really great things about this book, but I've heard that it's very, very gruesome as well. And I had to have a physical copy of The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. I read this last year during spooky season. This is the short novella that is based on the Hellraiser movies, and I loved this so much. I normally don't like short stories for whatever reason. I just have not found one that I really, really loved, except for this one. From page one, I was hooked, and it was just written so, oh my god, the font in this is huge. It was written so well. It is super creepy, and it's perfect for this time of year, so definitely check it out. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited is how I read it last year, I believe. I don't know if it's still on there, but if you're into horror and you like Hellraiser movies, then I would definitely read what it's based on. Now we are getting into all of the books that I found at a thrift store. So my daughter, she's a junior this year in high school, and she said she wanted to go buy all of her school clothes from a thrift store. I am 100% not going to argue with that. So we took about a 45-minute ride to a very large thrift store. I thought I was going to be very bored while she shopped because she likes to shop. Take her time. But they had the greatest book section, and I found some wonderful books. So I am a huge Michael Crichton fan. Jurassic Park is one of my favorite books of all time, and this one I found, it's called Dragon Teeth. I have no idea what this is about. Didn't even know. I've never even heard of it. It says, not since Jurassic Park has digging up the past been so dangerous. The legendary, so this is historical. It sets in 1876. The legendary #1 New York Times bestselling author returns to the world of paleontology in this recently discovered novel, a thrilling adventure set in the Wild West during the golden age of fossil hunting. I love this cover. It's so cool. It's got like a dinosaur with a cowboy on it. I love Michael Crichton's writing, so I'm hoping that I enjoy this book as well. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure the rest of these are all horror. So first up is John Saul, Guardian. Look at this. A telephone ringing in the dead of night signals the beginning of a journey into fear as Marianne Carpenter, newly separated and struggling to raise her 2 children alone, hears the shocking news. 2,000 miles away, her friend, the Wilkinsons, are suddenly inexplicably dead, and their only child, Marianne's godchild, abruptly orphaned. Even as Marianne rushes to embrace her young charge, the disturbing questions mount. Was it merely a chance, though tragic, mishap that took these lives? Or was it a murder? Soon Marianne will begin to suspect an even more sinister force at work, for Joey Wilkinson, a sad and silent adolescent, seems to harbor secrets beyond her most nightmarish imaginings. What's up? Dean Koontz, Dragon Tears. I've read quite a few books of his back probably in the 90s, and I really enjoyed them, but it's been many years since I've read any of his books. So I saw this and I thought the cover was really cool. Tuesday was a fine California day, full of sunshine and promise, until Harry Lyon had to shoot someone at lunch. From that first sentence, Dragon Tears explodes across the page with the excitement, chilling suspense, emotion, and deeply drawn characters that have earned Dean Koontz enormous worldwide popularity. This sounds more like a thriller than a horror. Look at this author picture. This is so 90s. Is this 90s? 1993. Next up is The Fireman by Joe Hill. I have not read any of his books. This is massive. This is massive. I have no clue. It says, original and gripping, a page turner. And that's quoted by George R.R. Martin. This looks like it was well loved, and I love that. A terrifying new plague is striking cities one by one. Dragonscale is a highly contagious, deadly spore that marks its hosts with beautiful black and gold marks across their bodies, before causing them to burst into flames. Millions are infected, blazes erupt everywhere, there is no cure, no one is safe. This book is by Clive Barker. I had to get it. It's also massive. I don't know how to say this. Imagica, I guess. Yeah, this book. Ooh, the fonts are small too. This book is huge. Over 800 pages. This also looks very well loved. From master storyteller Clive Barker comes an epic tale of myth, magic, and forbidden passion. Complete with, oh, it has illustrations in it and an appendix. Holy crap. Ooh. Oh my gosh. This looks creepy. This is definitely a time commitment here. It says, Magica is an epic beyond compare, vast in conception, obsessively detailed in execution, and apocalyptic in its resolution. At its heart lies a sensualist and master art forger, Gentle, whose life unravels when he encounters Judith Odell, whose power to influence the destinies of men is vaster than she knows, and Pai O Pa, an alien assassin who comes from a hidden dimension. This book is either going to be incredibly interesting and fantastic or unbelievably weird and super boring. Hoping it's the former and not the latter. And next are a bunch of mass paperback books. I typically don't like them, but I just couldn't resist. The first one is by Agatha Christie, classic, and then There Were None. I have never read any of her books, and for like 50 cents, I figured perfect time to start. This is a classic. I don't know too much about it. I actually don't even want to read the back about this. I think it just takes place. I think it has a bunch of strangers that are stranded somewhere and they start to die off one by one. I don't know. This will be my first, like I said, Agatha Christie book, so I'm excited to give this a try. It's not too long, just over 300 pages, so. Another Dean Koontz book. This is Mr. Murder, and it has like a Christmas scene on the cover and a globe. It's like, oh, maybe I'll read this for Christmas. For Arthur Martin Stillwater, life couldn't be more perfect. He and Paige are happy together, and their two daughters, Emily and Charlotte, are intelligent and happy. At last, Martin's novels are achieving long-hoped-for levels of success. So why does he feel such dread? Experience sudden blackouts? There must be a simple explanation, mustn't there? The killer doesn't know his own name, only the name he uses. He has no family, no friends, no home. He cannot recall who gives him his assignments, and he doesn't know why his targets must die. Sometimes, in despair, he is overwhelmed by his loneliness and tortured by the meaninglessness of his life. Now you have to pick this up for Christmas. Next up is Fiends by John Ferris, and this one has a little... like I have to have this. I think this one actually is about vampires. In the frozen pit of blackest hell, death sleeps, ravishing beyond words, evil beyond our darkest dreams of Satan. Her eyelids flutter. Rising from her pit, she wakes her vampire brood and frees them from their ancient graves. Pretty sure this is from the 90s too. 1990. Nightmare. A novel by Gloria Murphy. Look at this. The Offer. It was a welcome second chance. The Platts, burdened with a failed business and a deteriorating marriage, grabbed it. The Institute of Grad's Village had promised moving expenses, a house, and most of all, a terrific new job for Richard. It was the model society located completely underground. School children were grouped by intelligence rather than age. Junk food was banned, and an all-powerful bureaucracy governing by cryptic codes. Close medical scrutiny and unbreakable rules watched over every detail of life. Gradually, Jesse Platt learned that the Institute was concerned with more than the study of communicable diseases. It wanted something more, the one thing no parent would ever willingly give. Next up, Ghost Light by Claire McNally. Has another kid on the cover. Pretty little 5-year-old Bonnie Jackson was the darling of all the stage world until the night she found herself wandering, terrified through the darkness of the Winston Theater. A night that would end with evil consuming the innocent girl in a horrible, fiery death. Now, 60 years later, Bonnie has returned and she will command the spotlight once again. Devotion by Daniel Westerly. On a fading summer evening, Jeremy and Catherine fell in love forever and ever and ever. Shy, slender Catherine was the caretaker's daughter. Jeremy, a rich man's son. Theirs was a fierce and first love, as fatal as death itself. In a darkened room by the sea, she drifted from his arms, too frail, too ethereal to live. Jeremy wandered the world, his dreams haunted by her face, her voice, her touch. Only when he met Anna did he forget, Anna. Anna, so vivid, so warm, as strong and beautiful as life. In the long-delayed heat of desire, he betrayed, this is so 90s. He betrayed the voice that echoed beyond the grave. But the dead have their desires, desperate, all-consuming. Now Catherine is calling out, drawing Jeremy and Anna into a pulsing obsession, into a dark, undying love. Another creepy kid on the cover, Sleep Tight by Matthew Costello. Don't let the bed bugs bite. It started with a little boy who sneaked out to go to the pool and was never seen again. Old Miss Waverly disappeared soon afterward, and then that hotshot student vanished into thin air. Things like this just didn't happen in a quiet town like Harley, except that Harley was no longer a quiet town. And the last book, number 40. I think it's 40. Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. I actually have heard a lot of things about this book. I think this is a coming-of-age story. I'm kind of sad though because this book is kind of falling apart inside. Pages are kind of coming undone from the binding. It's the summer of 1960. The 6th grade boys of Elm Haven, Illinois are forging the powerful magical bonds that a lifetime of growth and loss will never erase. Amid the sun-drenched cornfields and the sly flirtations of the town young girls, that loyalty will pitilessly tested. What the hell? From the silent depths of the old central school, a hulking fortress tinged with mahogany scent of coffins, an invisible evil drifts outward, plunging Mike, Dwayne, Dale, Harlan, and Kevin into a war without boundary or mercy, where an eternal enemy owns the night. Summer of Night. Maybe I'll read this next summer. This one's kind of long. Almost 600 pages. That is it. That are all the books that I recently bought over the summer and early spring. It's quite a lot going through them, so I've got quite a bit of reading to do. I'm very interested to know if any of you have heard of any of these old 90s books that I've hauled. Please, if you have, I definitely want to hear from you down below. And then the other books, let me know if you've read any of them, if you feel like I'm going to really enjoy them, or if any of them you feel like I should prioritize. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again soon. See ya!